you're playing authority, there's no better place to play it from than a great height.
Now, I was just telephoning to find out whether I could have my car today. Oh, Tuesday.
But what do you mean, Tuesday? Be quiet. I don't care if the spare parts come from Mars. Go and collect them. A bottleneck in the lube bay. What does that mean in English? We'll say lubrication, then.
Margot.
Be quiet, Jerry. All right, go and look at your wretched worksheet. No, you may not tinkle me back. I'll hold on.
Yeah, but don't interrupt Margot just now. She's in full flow.
Quite often when people say, what are you going to do when you leave school? I'm going to be an actress. Oh, will you find a leading man tall enough? I want a man who's as strong as a lion, extremely handsome, and as wise as Solomon.
Lucky we met.
Penelope Keith has been on our screens for the past 4 decades, playing some of our most loved sitcom characters, from the inimitable Margot to the redoubtable Audrey.
What's up to a lager?
Born Penelope Hatfield in Sutton during the war, she was brought up in Clapham by her mother and grandparents. As her mother was often away working, Penelope was sent to boarding school. I was incredibly close to my mother, but I realise now I didn't see that much of her. So the enormous influence, I suppose, was my boarding school, really. When my mother sent me, first of all, I was 6. And people said, oh, gosh, don't send poor Penny to boarding school that young. And when I got there, I adored it. It was a very, very happy time. And they encouraged performing. We always had school plays, and eventually I took the lead in those. At 17, Penelope joined the Webber Douglas Drama School, and although an outstanding student, was left in no doubt of her limitations. I was fairly plain-looking, really, and tall, which was just a burden I carried with me from a very early age. And they'd say, of course, well, you know, yes, you'll be right, but you won't come into your own till you're 40. Despite this prediction, Penelope quickly established herself as an actress, appearing in Rep, doing a season at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and making her first break into television. My first, what I would call reasonable part on television, I was asked to be in The Army Game.
The Army Game!
I was so nervous. I knew it was live, and I was acting with these amazing icons.
Harry Fowler and Dick Emery.
And I played Primrose, who was a librarian, and as Dick Emery's girlfriend. It was a real baptism of fire. I went into the pub afterwards, and I had this dreadful delayed reaction. I just passed clean out.
And I hope you both have all the happiness in the world.
I got a small part in the Avengers. I was a young character actress.
Good luck.
At that time, I didn't get locked into anything. It was wonderful.
In the 60s, stunt action became a regular feature of popular television, but finding a stunt double for Penelope was not always easy.
I remember having a stunt double in a film I made for Ned Sherrin called Every Home Should Have One, with that great comedian called Marty Feldman. And I played a very butch nanny. And my first entrance was top to toe in black leather on a motorbike. And sadly, I couldn't ride a motorbike. So I was introduced to my stunt double, who was a rather tall, plain-looking chap. So I got the picture.
It was Thelma Graves, the casting director, who suggested her for Every Home Should Have One. It was a curious part as a sort of militant German motorcycling lesbian.
You must forgive Richard. He thinks you're from Mars.
No, Hamburg.
And I hadn't immediately seen her in the role. I had seen her in the theatre. She was wonderful as Marcia in The Seagull. And I'd seen her also in Greenwich in the House of Bernarda Alba. But none of them prepared one, really, for a leather-clad lesbian.
I'd done a part in Hadley, which Gerald Harper was starring in. It was a terribly, wildly successful series. And that was when I think I was first seen at Yorkshire Television.
I think the psychiatrist is rather dishy. They always have sort of penetrating eyes, don't they? One look and you start bearing your soul.
Peter Rogers was a producer, and he produced a series called Kate with Phyllis Calvert, and he cast me as a newspaper editor in that.
A visual record of my reign, me being editor.
And I played a character called Wenda Padbury. And I remember Peter saying to me, she's not very nice. There was an article once, I remember, in the TV Times, saying Penelope, the woman you love to hate. And at one point, another cutting, I remember, that I'd taken over from Ina Sharples as the hate figure in the country. Frau Svensson intends to sue you for libel. If you are pregnant, then someone is responsible. Not Frau Svensson. We can find out who, Miss Randall, and it won't be very pleasant.
There's no one else.
There isn't, you know it. I suggest you speak to the man, if you know who it is, and then write a nice letter. I think this one will do very well, if you'd care to just sign it.
In 1974, while enjoying huge success in Ayckbourn's The Norman Conquests, Penelope was offered a part which was to make her a household name.
Richard Briers had since told me had been sent a script of another television series that he should do, a situation comedy called The Good Life. And he came to see it because he'd played in lots of Alan Ayckbourn and saw Felicity Kendall and I and thought that we would fit in rather well with the Good Life cast.
Alan Ayckbourn accused me of casting plagiarism. And I suppose in a sense it's true, because he'd used in his plays all the actors that I wanted to use in The Good Life.
When we started episode 1, Margot was actually only a voiceover. She was never even seen. And the writers had written it primarily for Felicity and myself.
What is it? What's going on?
It's the goods. They're dancing in their goldfish pond.
Why?
I hadn't thought of that. Why?
Celebrating!
Your birthday was yesterday.
No! We're celebrating because we found out how to beat it!
What's he saying?
Look, if you're so damned interested, Margot, why don't you get out of bed yourself and have a look?
Penny's part grew and grew in stature because she took a very firm grip on the character from the outset.
The ooh-ah bird is so called because it lays square eggs. I don't understand.
It was an amazing relationship. There was this terribly kindly man who put up with this dragon of a lady.
The male animal has a lot to answer for.
What have I done now?
All of you. Down through the ages, and it's the woman who always suffers. You drag her along behind you like a mere thing, an object, a chattel.
Look, I simply...
Don't interrupt, Jerry. Just put that hi-fi equipment away and make the coffee.
Anything you say?
He gave as good as he got. And Paul, again, being a brilliant actor, could fill that in so he wasn't just a henpecked, weak man. Whenever she sort of popped out, he would immediately get a takeaway curry.
Now, your dinner.
Oh, that's right. I've got some Indian takeaway.
Then will you kindly eat it in the kitchen with the extractor fan full on? The last time, this upholstery reeked of Vindaloo for a week. Good night, Jerry.
Right.
And she used to stalk out, and then he would just sort of wave the takeaway thing and go... and blow the terrible curry odour around this pristine lounge of hers.
Jerry?
It was a bit like the way that the Archers public are fascinated by Linda Snell. And they begin by being irritated, but then the character becomes so monstrous that you can't help warming to it and wanting it to go farther.
Overture for beginners, you ghastly little child!
She was a vulnerable character, but she also said things which perhaps a lot of people would like to have said but never did.
Road cleaning, I shall pay. Street lighting, I shall pay. Ground rent, I shall pay. But when it comes to the drain in front of my house, I shall not, because it is blocked up and overflowing.
I'll make a note of that.
You will do more than that, Mr. Squires. You will have a plumber on my doorstep at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning with a plunger in his hand, or you will not get a penny.
Now, just who do you think you are, Mrs. Ledbetter?
I am the silent majority.
She was that wonderful mixture of an English nanny, the occasional Prime Minister, and Barbara Woodhouse, coupled with a little tinge of sexiness, which she was totally unaware of.
Oh, Tom, you're very manful at times.
And you are very womanful. Penelope Keith as Margot, I think, will go down in the Hall of Fame of sitcom for a very long time. In fact, I think possibly Margot will be remembered forever.
Why don't you just throw a bucket of mud on the floor?
Look, I have just cut my finger clipping your blasted hedge.
Don't swear, Jerry. And don't bleed in the sink. I just cleaned it.
For her performance in BBC Television's The Good Life, and for donkey's years at the Globe Theatre, the Variety Club's Show Business Personality Awards goes to Penelope Keith.
1977 was an extraordinary year. I was lucky enough to win a prize or two. It was also Jubilee year. And suddenly we had galas every Sunday. And I was asked to go to Chichester. And I remember walking down the stairs and seeing this terribly attractive man and thinking, gosh. And I smiled and said hello and walked in, and I thought, I wonder if he's part of the company this year. That'll be interesting, and went into my dressing room. And this man followed me and came into the dressing room as though he owned the place. I thought he must be part of the company. He probably runs the joint. But he turned out to be a detective, and he was there as part of the royal duty. And that was my future husband. Isn't it romantic? Then the icing on the cake, or the silver and gold balls on top of the icing on the cake, was to be asked to do the Morecambe and Wise Christmas show. I was so thrilled. I don't think I slept for weeks. Eric said to me, he said, now, look, love, you're known for your dignity and your poise. Well, we're going to get rid of all that. I got hysterical, and in actual fact, when I look at that, I was laughing so much, I had to turn my head away from the camera. It was a wonderful time.